Cover Killer Nation, we are back, and today we are going to talk about a band that is on the rise. A band that was made available to me thanks to somebody on Facebook who's also a member of the Cover Killer Nation, a gentleman by the name of Douglas Skeen, with his band Hemina and their album Synthetic. Now this is a band that has been only around since 2008, and they are a band that creates, as he calls it, cinematic progressive metal. And the album Synthetic is considered to be a cinematic progressive metal opus. And I think that honestly, whenever that is the description used for this, it's something that it's almost not giving it enough credit. So you can already tell just how this review is going to go. This is a gentleman that you guys can all actually friend on Facebook. He's a friend of the Cover Killer Nation page. He's a friend of mine on my personal page and all that other fun stuff. He's somebody who's definitely wants to get the album circulated around. He's going to be sending me a physical copy of this album, and for that, my friend, I thank you. I thank you, because that's really rewarding for both me, and it's time for me to reward you with an album review of Synthetic. Now, Synthetic is an album that was available online in 2011. However, there was a deal that was secured, and there's distribution rights and all that shit that's going to be happening here in 2012, so there's going to be a physical copy that is available to everybody. So now it's time for us to talk about it. That way you guys know why you need this album. Now, typically, whenever you think of cinematic progressive metal, or just progressive metal in general, you think of me. You know why? Because some people might think that I'm just a progressive metal snob. Is that the reason why I'm covering this? Fuck no. Am I a progressive metal snob? I might be. I really don't care if I am or not. I don't consider myself one, so whatever. However, Synthetic is an album where you have to understand that a lot of bands that are out there, a lot of established acts, a lot of bands that aren't in this inception period where they're just trying to get known, should really take a lot of example from this album, from this 79-minute long cinematic progressive metal thrill ride. This is an album that blends both philosophical lyrics with virtuosic instrumentalization, very good songwriting, and it all flows together in that cinematic nature where it almost feels as though you are listening to a movie as opposed to watching it. And that's actually kind of fun. You know why that's kind of fun? It's because you can almost imagine what's going on in your head, from song to song, from track to track, almost like it's from scene to scene. Now, why is this something that all these other bands should marvel and maybe strive for? Well, I'm about to tell you. It's because this is an album that has a lot of engaging characteristics to it. This is an album that really keeps you into it throughout each and every one of the 79 minutes. This is an album that might be nearly 80 minutes in length. It might be, nearly an hour and a half in length, but it does not feel that way. And I know that you've heard me say that in other reviews before. This doesn't feel like it's this long. It doesn't feel like it's however number of minutes. And that's a good thing. That's a damn good thing. Because that means that the music is so engaging that time itself seems to not even matter. Because you're so into the music, you're so engaged by it, you are really wrapped up in this album that time itself seems not to matter. You don't notice that so much time has passed. Synthetic is a brilliant example of this. The free-flowing melodies, the way in which these tracks are constructed, the overall musicianship, the songwriting ability of this band is phenomenal. It's very, very well done. It's almost a marvel that these guys are only on album number 1 and they've only been around for about 3 years. However, this is the truth. The truth of the matter is that this album has a lot of great things to offer a listener, and especially one that happens to be a progressive metal fan. But let's talk about engaging people for a moment here. Engaging the audience in progressive music is sometimes a little bit harder to do because of longer song lengths, because a lot of people feel that bands such as, Dream Theater or the like, or, these bands that like to do 20-minute long compositions just like to wank off on their instruments. Is that what they're trying to do? No, they're not trying to show off or anything like that, at least not most of them. They're trying to tell a story. Not to mention, they're trying to tell a story both through lyrics and through music, and that's not always something that's very easy for a lot of people to get. Now, as far as engaging is concerned, this is something that you can find in any level of music. And I'm going to provide you with a couple of examples. For example, we have the new Lamb of God album. It's primed to come out here this coming Tuesday on the 24th of January. That's an album that's certainly engaging from start to finish, and that's Even though it's an album that is primed more with how, angry or how brutal or how, how insane that this album really is by comparison to a progressive metal album. And you can also say the same thing about alternative albums. You can say the same thing about Pussifer's Conditions of My Parole, my #1 alternative album of 2011. Because this is an album that really just embodies everything that Pussifer is all about, and they're able to put it on one disc, and it just keeps you wondering what's going to happen next. The new Foo Fighters album is another great example. Wasting Light was done in a garage. It was a garage album, and it keeps you engaged throughout, every track. The Black Keys are a great example. Megadeth's Rust in Peace is a classic example of engaging music. It's thrash metal, it's, just great guitar work, and it just keeps you listening because you want to know how far they're going to take it with the next track, because typically they take it one step further from start to finish. Now with this particular album here in 2012 with Hemina's Synthetic, it's a little bit of a different story, only because the way in which you're being engaged, the way in which you're being wrapped up is both lyrically through the philosophical nature of the lyrics, the very, I guess above world thinking, the way in which these lyrics are really patterned, the topics in which are being discussed, and everything like that, as well as the musicianship. The combination of the two together is what really strikes me as the most powerful of engagers. I know I'm really using this word a lot, but that's because this is a central theme of this review, not to mention a central theme of what makes this album great, is because you just feel like you are in this album. You feel as though you're almost living through the storyline of this album. Now, is it my job here to tell you exactly what that storyline is? Absolutely not. You know why? Because I feel that with concept albums, one thing that's kind of left out sometimes is the ability to have a listener kind of picture the story for themselves. I think sometimes concept albums are almost perceived to be so cut and dry that somebody needs to explain the concept to you, that you almost have to be baby-fed what the concept is, that way you understand it, that way you get it. When in reality, it's a lot more fun for you to just sit down, listen to it, and kind of conceive your own notion, and kind of see that's your own mental picture, your own mental movie of what's going on inside your head. But with all of this said, Synthetic by the band Hemina is a fantastic, fantastic work of art. This is one that whenever it becomes available, and believe me, Doug will have plenty of updates on whenever the availability will be out there, and he will no doubt be more than willing to offer this to as many people as possible, so definitely get in contact with him. This is an album that certainly should be investigated. This is an album that certainly should be picked up, and I am looking forward to listening and seeing all of the other people, all of the other reviewers, the websites that are able to get their hands on this album, that are able to review this album and examine it from start to finish, and what they have to say about it. Is it all going to be glowingly positive? Well, I hope so. I really do, because this is an album that's certainly deserving of a glowing review from just about every institution. But of course, that's not going to be the case, because, let's face it, everyone's different. However, from this particular man, from this particular institution, from this particular head of nation, the Cover Killer Nation, I'm here to tell you that Hemina's Synthetic is certainly an album that you should investigate, one that you should go out of your way in order to find, one that you should go out of your way to listen to take in, and listen, and feel just how engaged that you feel with this record. Just how close you feel. And just how much it seems like this band is speaking your life for you, even though it isn't yours. Just how much they transform their story and reflect it upon you where it almost feels like your own. Fantastic work, Doug. Fantastic work, Hemina. Synthetic is a fantastic album. Remember last year when Sanhedrin had a killer EP that ended up on the top 25 list? That could happen again. That could happen again with a band that certainly deserves a lot more attention. With Sanhedrin, they deserve a deal. Hemina has a deal now. They have distribution. But that doesn't matter, because they're still on the underground. They're still really trekking their way. They already have a follow-up in mind for 2013. I'm stoked for that. I'll review that whenever it comes out, Doug. That's a goddamn promise. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen of the Cover Killer Nation, your homework is to find this album, and your homework is to listen to this album. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee it.